Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I am joined by Mr. Dave Hyde, the 2020 Florida Sportswriter of the Year. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
How are you doing?
Um, I'm getting ready for another football season, and finally, it's going to be a little taste of normal. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So my first question is, what made you want to get into sports as a career?
Yeah, so it was a combination of two loves, really. I love sports growing up, like so many young people, and no surprise there. But I liked writing too. I really loved to write. I loved words. I loved English class. I enjoyed, strangely, writing essays, which is good because now I write 4 essays a week in addition to all the other stuff. But so it was a combination of sports, writing, and growing up, I read the newspaper. I grew up right outside Columbus, Ohio, in Westerville, and every morning I'd read the sports page, and I came to appreciate the Kay Kesslers and Dick Fenlons and Bob Baptist of the Columbus sports writers. And so, even in high school, I worked on the school paper, and it just seemed to, nothing better came along for me. I was an economics major in college, economics and history, and I debated going to graduate school in economics. And if there was a fork in the road, it was there for me. But really, nothing supplanted my passion for writing, and sports was a good vehicle for writing.
Absolutely. And you see a lot of people that want to get into sports, and it's really amazing the people I've come across and how willing they are to help. And I feel like the sports community itself is just a great place to be a part of.
Yeah, it's fun for me. In college, I went to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and there, my roommate for a while was Clark Spencer, who worked for the Miami Herald as his career progressed. And in college, we would read Mark Purdy of the Cincinnati Enquirer. Now, Mark's retired now, but in my career, I became good friends with Mark Purdy, covering the World Series and the Super Bowls and places we would meet. And so, what better way to have a fun career? The guy you read and you thought, boy, this guy's really good in college. When I was in college and he was in Cincinnati, later becomes a good friend of yours. So it's been a great, that's just a little vignette of what my career's been like.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned about how you used to cover like World Series and such major events. What was like probably one of your most memorable events you've covered?
Well, the most memorable event as far as days and days would be, picking Olympics. I covered 10 Olympics, and you throw that many sports together, that many athletes from different cultures, and I loved covering the Olympics. So Barcelona was an eye opener as far as the Olympics and things I'd like to do. Now, if you're picking one particular event that eclipsed everything for me, it was in 1987, I believe. I was with the Miami Herald, and I covered the first Team USA baseball trip to Cuba since Castro had taken over. And the first game there, first you go in there, and all the headlines in the paper that day are talking about the one-handed man, Jim Abbott. Okay, Jim Abbott was pitching the first game for Team USA, and the first guy at bat for Cuba that night was Victor Mesa. They called him El Loco. His sons, actually, two sons, have been drafted by the Miami Marlins now. So they're in the Miami Marlins organization. But at the time, Victor was a Ricky Henderson of the Cuba team. He wore his socks up high. He was flashy, had a pizzazz to him. And the first pitch off from Jim Abbott that night was a bunt. Victor Mesa bunted it down the third baseline to test, can Jim Abbott field with one hand? How does this guy actually play with one hand? And Abbott came off the mound, put the glove in his, he did the thing with his glove that he did was to field the ball, and he threw Victor Mesa out in a bang bang play at first, and 60,000 people in Estadio Latino Americana in Havana rose and gave Jim Abbott a standing ovation. So it was that night was so magical for the historic idea of a baseball team going to play in Castro's Havana, and being from Miami, all the mixed reaction that brought, and then Jim Abbott, that moment where 60,000 people stood up applauding him. That was a magic for me.
That sounds incredible that you got to witness that and see that special game. Um, when you used to cover, you said you used to cover the Miami Herald. How was that? How was your time there when you would work there?
Yeah, so I spent 2 years in Iowa City. Loved it. It was a small 5-person sports staff covering the University of Iowa, and from there I went to the Miami Herald, and I started off covering their suburban section. So covering the 13-year-old little league team that won a tournament, or the Taekwondo champion of Pembroke Pines, and intermixed with that was big assignments like going to Cuba, and so I slowly worked my way up there. I worked for the Herald for 5 years, and then I was at the Earthquake World Series in '89 and got the job offer to write a column at the Sun Sentinel, and it's been gravy ever since.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like so you've been at the Sun Sentinel since 1989.
Yeah, 1990 basically by the time I started.
Wow, incredible, remarkable,
Yeah,
right
been a
there.
while. I'm a lifer.
It must be good to be able to work somewhere for a good length of time because it shows like because then people start to get to know you and get to know your columns and everything.
Yeah, there's that, and from a writing standpoint, you develop a lost idea in our business, almost institutional knowledge. So I came in, I covered Don Shula. I had, so I know what it's like to deal with Don Shula at the height of his fame and greatness as a NFL coach, and saw Pat Riley come in, and Marlins come to life, the Heat come to life. I remember writing a story that the Heat were in trouble because their arena didn't have enough bathrooms to satisfy the requirements by law for public codes. So, there is a great benefit of staying in one place and getting to know everybody, and vice versa, everybody getting to know you too.
Absolutely. And then lastly, I want to ask, what advice would you give recent college graduates that want to get their foot in the door to sports writing?
Yeah, it's a completely different world than when I started. My way was, as I said, went to a small paper, 12,000 circulation in Iowa City, and with the dream of working my way up to become a columnist, and so now there's so many different avenues for guys to take, and while the newspaper world is diminished from the opportunities are diminished. Few papers now go to the Olympics and the World Series and the Super Bowls and all that the way I did at the start of my column writing career. But there's so many different avenues now between what's online and radio, TV. Now it's accepted for everybody to get into that. And so my thought is try everything, do everything. The more you do, the more you'll do. And while to me, writing is always the foundation of everything. If you go into radio, you can write down some thoughts, and you go into TV, it's going to be the backbone, still going to be writing and an ability to communicate in that manner. And if you have that foundation, you'll be able to branch out and do well, I think, in other words. So, my advice is in some ways old advice. If you love what you do, there'll be a spot for you, and the money will find you.
Wonderful. And, some people say they never work a day in their life because they love what they do. And, if you like sports writing,
Well,
go for it.
I love what I do, but I love what I do, but I feel like it's work too. So right
Yeah,
now I'm sitting trying to write a column, and I'm staring at a blank screen and a blinking cursor. So it's work, but it beats a heavy lifting.
absolutely. Well, Mr. Hyde, I greatly appreciate you, allowing me to interview you. And again, congratulations.
All right, Joe, I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching.